Oh, good morning, YouTube. We've got the John Deere 757 here. I think there's quite a few of these still out there running around, still working hard. But they do have their issues with this Kawasaki FH721D motor. They have problems with heat and the buildup of junk in the shrouds which surround the cooling fins on the cylinder in here. And Deere actually came out with an updated design shroud, which is quite expensive. There's a couple other videos on that. I don't think they're quite as deep in the motor as I'm going to. They just talk about the shroud and the heat. We're going to show a little bit of the aftermath here. Let's see if we can give an example of what has happened and what we need to do. Now, what I'm not going to do is go out and spend $2,500 or $3,000 on a brand new motor. Folks, that is silly. That is just plain silly. We have, let me see. Well, I can't get the hour meter to work now because we're not plugged in, but we have 1,200 hours on this machine. The deck is in wonderful shape, doesn't have a lick of rust on it, no dents. The frame is straight. No problem with the hydro pumps. This is a good mower. We are not giving up on it yet by any stretch of the imagination. Now let's see what happened here, okay? First of all, head gaskets. Load the motor, load the head. They get hot, they stretch, warp, all sorts of things. So, what do we see? Where it went? Yeah, there it is. This right hand number 1 cylinder head gasket is blown right here. And it was venting combustion gases into the atmosphere. Now number 2, I don't know if we can see too well in the gasket here. It's blown. It was leaking gases down into the crankcase. Now, these motors present always with oil leaking. Usually, it is coming around from this front crankshaft seal. The seal may be bad, it may be not. But guys, don't do this twice. You got to pull this motor apart to replace that seal. I assure you that oil is not just coming out of there on its own. It's coming out of there because there is excessive pressure in the crankcase due to blow-by or a blown head gasket or so on and so forth. Take a look-see. You see our number right head, or right-hand head. You can see the filth on it, where it is blown. Let's get a better look here. And right there's our blown gasket. The gas is even cut into the aluminum. Here's our other head, our left hand. And you can see the burn mark on this gasket where it came through. Right there. But let's have a look at the cylinders. Well, let's look at what's good. Because guys, this is just incredible. Oh, here we have a crank with 1,200 hours on it. And that there are no real bearings here. Yes, it's oil lubed, but the bearings are the rod. And this crank is perfect. There ain't no aluminum worn on it. There's not a ridge. That is a perfectly serviceable part. It is just fine. Now, let's take a look, see at our cylinders. These are coated in oil right now. We'll wipe them down and take a look, see. These cylinders are good cylinder. And we actually still have, get some light in here, some decent cross hatching in it with a little bit of rust in there from being washed last night. But there's a little bit of cross hatching left. We'll re-hone this when we put new rings on, for sure. Now this one, it's still there, but it's about gone. You can see some scratches where I had to sand a little bit to get the carbon out of the way so the piston actually come out. But this one, it ain't looking too hot, and I'll show you why. So you get a good angle on there. There we go. You can see that's about glazed. It's not done, but it's close. But again, there's no ridges in the cylinder liner. These are cast iron liners. There's no ridges whatsoever. It is smooth as can be. We just worn the cross hatching out on them. And I'll show you how. We'll step over here and take a look, see at our pistons. Let's see. Yeah, well, see. Camshaft lobes are beautiful. This motor hadn't had nothing but not like my specialty motor oils, but this one has just had John Deere 1030. And I have to say, opening this motor up, it's a well-built motor oil. There ain't a bit of sludge anywhere in this motor. None. We've got our carbon on top of the pistons. I guess that's to be expected. Pistons don't look too bad. This is number one. First cylinder still has a halfway decent hone on it. Inside the rods still looks great. Now, here's our big problem. See what happened there? See that blow by? Well, it's because this top ring, well, there's half of it. Yes, top compression ring is in two pieces. That would cause a problem right there. You see it cracked, and there's our blow by right there. Filling the crankcase up with gases, forcing oil out of any seal it can. First it was the first rodeo, it was the PCV case. Then I took it apart, put it back together with a new gasket with a new PCV valve. They blew that gasket out. And then we RTV'd the PCV case gasket on. And I'll be damned, it's the only thing that doesn't leak. So, obviously we got pressure problems. And we'll be back shortly. Talk about these heads, see what we got left, because I have not disassembled them yet. And take a truckload of parts to the machine shop, and we'll end up putting it back together and see what happens. Stay tuned. Okay, so here on take two, I just want to reiterate here. If the FH721D, or yeah, 721D, if it is puking oil, it is not because it just wants to leak. It is puking oil because there is excess crankcase pressure. Again, either from a busted ring, as we saw on this side, or a head gasket that has failed and is venting across the gasket surface into the lifter bores, venting and causing excessive pressure down here in the crankcase. It's got to go somewhere. This little bitty PCV valve here cannot handle all that flow. So the pressure builds up and it goes to one place it can, right out through that seal. And then as that seal sits right in the middle of this stator and this flywheel, which spin at 3600, and prompt, and that flywheel has a fan on it. And then that fan kindly distributes your motor oil all over the mower and down the sides. And it just looks like a dinosaur went splat on the front of the motor. So I cannot stress it enough. If it's leaking, it's got other problems, guys. Don't tear it apart and replace seals. If you got it apart, do it real. It's not rocket surgery. A re-ring is not that hard.